Is it an expensive toy or a serious musical instrument? I think that's the question everyone has about these small form factor devices from Roland, like the boutiques, Korg Volcas, and Yamaha Reface series instruments. Let's talk about the latest AIRA product from Roland. Hi, I'm Zach Marr from Alamo Music here in San Antonio, Texas. You can find us online at alamomusic.com. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, turn your notifications. This is our Alamo Sound Lab channel where we talk about all things music tech related. And today we're talking about the Roland AIRA J-6, which is a super small form factor instrument based on their ACB technology that's now quite a few years old. And this is the latest kind of ultra budget version of the technology in specifically what I think the Juno modeling engine that you find in the JU06A and the JU06 boutiques. And specifically, I think it's the Juno 60 engine inside here. And it's interesting because I saw this when it was released and I think everybody was joking, oh, it's Roland Volcas. And I was curious to hear how it sounded and to play with a little and get a sense of what it was. And I have to say, it reminds me of some of the trends that you saw in the 80s and 90s with Yamaha and Roland. I have two of these instruments here where Roland and Yamaha were taking technology in their flagship products and kind of reducing them down into smaller and smaller form factor instruments and reducing their functionality. But this was basically like an ultra budget DX7 sound box, and this was an ultra budget Juno 106, kind of pre-pop, like basically preset boxes. There was some basic features you could edit, but it was kind of like a inexpensive sound module. And really, it's very similar in what we're seeing from Roland with, they have the Juno X they've just released, that is, again, modeling the Juno 60, Juno 106 sounds. And then you see, and that's kind of a flagship product and then you have it make its way down into the boutiques. Actually, the boutique came before that. I think it's a different engine, but you get the picture. There's expensive products with similar technology, and then you have very inexpensive products with similar technology, but more limited kind of feature sets. And, so I was curious, here are my impressions of specifically the J6. We're going to do one on the T8 as well. There's also a vocoder one that's been very popular, are sold already, so I can't do a video on that. But here are my thoughts. It sounds great. I really like the JU06A, and it's the same engine. It's 4 voices as well. And it's got the ACB kind of Juno voice in here, and it just sounds really nice. So that's a plus. I also have come to appreciate the small form factor of the boutiques, the Volcas, all of these instruments. And the reason is I've traveled more as of late, and I have told myself to remind myself, I should bring one of these on the plane because you can plug in, you can kind of lose yourself in something that isn't a television screen or a phone and really make some music. Is it the most practical way to make music if you're in a studio setup? No. It's not the most comfortable, but it definitely is a fun way to sketch out ideas and kind of live inside an instrument when you're on the go. So I think there's another plus to these smaller form factor instruments. This one is way more limited than a boutique, but that's always part of the fun. It also has kind of more pre-built chord sequences, patterns, arpeggiator and sequencing patterns. So it's really kind of an idea box, and I think somewhat inspirational. So I think it's a lot of fun. I think it sounds great. I think it's also something that's good for people that have kids. I feel safe letting my kids play with this. I have a 3 and a 1-year-old, and they always like to play with my stuff, or 3 and a 2-year-old. They always like to play with my stuff, and this one is very safe. I let them kind of hang out with it, and they didn't break it, and I wasn't worried if they did. So just some random thoughts on this. Let's take a listen. I'll conclude with kind of a wrap up. So is it an expensive toy or a real musical instrument? You know, I would say that it's both. I think it can be used as an actual musical instrument. It is a budget musical instrument, and I think it does force you to think about creating music in different ways. And you could use the kind of 1/8" connectors for MIDI connections to use a controller to get a little more accessibility out of the sound engine. It's for voice. I think if you're not a super keyboardist, it's probably great because it has an arpeggiator and a sequencer, and you can kind of pre-program stuff, and it has the beautiful Juno engine, ACB engine, which I think is probably the best recreation of the Juno sound that you can buy that's on the market. That's not a vintage instrument. But, you know, I do think you can also make the argument that this is an expensive toy, and I don't think that's a bad thing. It's also maybe an expensive entry point, it's also the cheapest entry point, I think, into the ACB technology that's actually an instrument and not something that lives in the cloud. So I think it's worth it? I think it definitely is got a decent value proposition. I think it's definitely in the spirit of these kind of sound modules of the past where they took their kind of latest technology and put it in an affordable price point and repackaged it and kind of rearranged it. But it's interesting and definitely sounds beautiful. So those are my thoughts. Would love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below. Have you tried one out already? Does it sound compelling to you? What questions do you have about it? Would love to hear from you below. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. And we'd love to see you here again. I hope you have a great rest of your day.